Following GEnx 1B/2B fan blade installation, the GEnx engine fan blade tip clearance inspection might need to be performed. See the Aircraft Maintenance Manual Single Fan Blade Installation or Fan Blade Set Installation tasks to determine when the fan blade tip clearance inspection needs to be performed. The fan blade tip clearance inspection is not necessary when the same blades are installed as removed. If the fan blade tip clearance inspection is necessary, do the Boeing Aircraft Maintenance Manual task. This digital training aid gives the technician visual help in performing this task. This part of the procedure will do an inspection of each fan tip clearance. If you measure the fan blade tip clearance with your weight on the inlet, you will get incorrect indications. The fan blade tip clearances can change with temperature. Thus, it is important to make sure that the fan tip clearance measurements in the steps that follow are done as quickly as possible with no stops. Note, the engine fan case and the fan rotor must be close to the same temperature as the air around the engine before you can begin this task. When possible, do the inspection indoors to prevent changes because of sun and wind. Note, make sure that the engine has had time to cool down before you do the measurement. Use tape and a marker to mark the number for each of the fan blades in sequence counterclockwise, forward looking aft from 1 to 18. To find the number 1 fan blade, look at the spinner cone for the dimple. The fan blade directly behind the dimple is fan blade number 1. Find the lowest point on the fan case abradable shroud. This will be used at the 6 o'clock position of the engine. Measure actually aft from the forward flange of the fan case the distance given in the procedure and mark a line on the abradable surface mark. This will be called the F1.5 location and will be placed so that each blade's tip gap will be measured. Hold the blades near to the spinner and turn the fan rotor clockwise, forward looking aft 2 complete revolutions. Continue to turn the rotor clockwise, forward looking aft, until fan blade number 1 is aligned over the F1.5 positioning mark on the fan case. Measure and record the fan blade tip clearance dimension at the F1.5 location as follows. Note, do not hold the blade when you measure. Note, if you measure the fan blade tip clearance with your weight on the inlet, you will get incorrect indications. There are 2 procedures to measure the fan blade tip gap. Procedure 1 is to use a fan blade case taper gauge, 11C3404, with enough thickness that a shim stack is not necessary. Procedure 1 will be used in this demonstration. Procedure 2 is to use 10,000th inch 0.25 millimeter shim stock or 20,000th inch 0.51 millimeter shim stock to make a 100,000th inch 2.54 millimeter thickness shim stack and a separate taper gauge for the F1.5 measurement. Angle the shims away from the Starrett taper gauge or equivalent to let the shims move freely under the fan blade. Use the shims and a fan blade case taper gauge or equivalent to measure between the fan blade and the abradable surface at the F1.5 position. Record the F1.5 measurement for blade number 1 on the blade length measurements form. If you are using shim stack, make sure you add the thickness of the shim stack to your taper gauge reading to record the full fan blade tip clearance. Turn the fan rotor clockwise, forward looking aft, to position fan blade number 2 at the F1.5 position at 6 o'clock. Measure and record the fan tip clearance of fan blade number 2 at the F.15 position at the 6 o'clock position. Repeat this procedure to measure the fan tip clearance at F1.5 for fan blade 3 through 18. From the 18 fan blade tip measurements, enter the blade number and the dimension of the longest fan blade and shortest blade. Prepare to do the measurement of the fan case, F1.5 full indicator runout, or FIR. Remove the fan blade spinner and attach the fixture mounting plate to the fan blade spinner support ring mounting holes. The mounting plate and support ring bolt holes are offset and will align only in the correct position. Put the mounting plate on the fan blade spinner support ring mounting bolt holes with location rabbet of the fan rotor with the mounting plate top vertical at the support ring mounting flange bolt hole marked with the number 1. Install the bolts in the holes. Tighten the bolts in a crisscross pattern. Install the fixture frame as follows. Move the lifting lever on the indicator to retract the indicator point during installation of the fixture frame to the mounting plate. Insert the nylon block onto the lifting lever to hold the indicator point in the retracted position. The fixture frame is aligned on the mounting plate holes by placing the fixture frame mounting flange pins into mounting plate holes. With the mounting plate top vert mark at the top, place the fixture frame pins into the mounting plate holes. Install the screws and torque them to the value given in the procedure. Turn the fixture frame so that the counterweight can be extended out. Loosen the locking screw of the counterweight, remove the ball lock pins, and extend the counterweight out. Install the ball lock pins and tighten the locking screw. With the fixture at 6 o'clock, while holding the dial indicator lifting lever, remove the nylon blocks and lower the lifting lever until it touches the abradable. Zero the indicator. Do not hold the fixture frame to turn the fan blades. When turning the fixture frame, use the fixture frame handles or hold the blades near the fan blade spinner support ring. Slowly turn the fan a minimum of 2 complete turns and make sure that the indicator is making contact on all 360 degrees of the fan abradable and the reading goes back to 0 each time. Do the f1.5 full indicator radius measurements. If you measure the fan blade tip clearance with your weight on the inlet, you will get incorrect indications. Turn the fan blades and read the remote display on the f1.5 indicator to find the maximum inner movement of the indicator. This should be the largest negative number shown on the indicator. Zero the indicator at this location of maximum inner movement of the indicator and mark the clock position as the minimum FIR dimension on the form. This location is the smallest fan case radius. All indications should now be positive. Turn the fan rotor to put the indicator at the 6 o'clock position. Record this value as the reference FIR dimension on the form. Turn the fan clockwise forward looking aft until you locate the maximum FIR dimension. This will be the largest positive number you see on the indicator. Record the value and the clock position on the form. Repeat this procedure for consistency as follows. Put the runout fixture at 9 o'clock and zero the indicator. Turn the runout fixture to find the largest negative indication. Zero the indicator and note the clock position. Turn the fixture to 6 o'clock and note the indicator value. Finally, find the largest value on the indicator. Note the clock position and the value. These values and clock positions should match the first numbers recorded on the form. If they do not match, repeat the f1.5 full indicator radius measurements from the beginning. Remove the runout measurement fixture. Move the lifting lever on the indicator to retract the indicator point away from the fan abradable. Insert the nylon block onto the lifting lever to hold the indicator point in the retracted position. Position the fixture to retract the counterweight. Loosen the locking screw. Remove the ball lock pins and retract the counterweight. Install the ball lock pins and tighten the locking screw. Remove the screws and then remove the fixture frame from the fixture mount plate. Remove the bolts and remove the mounting plate from the fan blade spinner support ring. Calculate the f1.5 maximum and minimum dimension for the fan blade set as follows. Using the data from the blade length measurements form and FIR dimension form, calculate the maximum and minimum dimensions on the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form. Compare the maximum and minimum dimensions from the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form to the limits shown in the fan tip clearance procedure. Both dimensions must be within the limits. Compare the F1.5 clearance dimensions from the blade length measurements form to the same limits shown in the fan tip clearance procedure. The 18 fan blade dimensions should be within the limits. If the fan blade tip clearance is in limits, install the fan blade spinner and put the airplane back to its usual condition. There are 4 different methods to correcting dimensions that are beyond the allowable limits. Number 1 is as follows. A maximum of 3 fan blades are permitted to have a F1.5 clearance dimension beyond the fan tip clearance limits as long as the blades are not adjacent to each other. Compare the maximum of up to 3 fan blades to the maximum F1.5 clearance limits in the fan blade tip clearance procedure. If they are adjacent, you can reposition those fan blades within the fan blade set. If the fan blade tip clearance are within limits, install the fan blade spinner and put the airplane back to its usual condition. The second attempt of correcting dimensions that are beyond the allowable limits are as follows. If 4 or more blades have F1.5 fan blade tip clearances that are not in limits, do these steps. Replace enough of the affected blades to decrease the number of blades that are above the limit to 3 and that they are not adjacent to each other. Using the fan blade case taper gauge used earlier, measure and record the fan blade tip clearance dimension of the 18 fan blade tips at the F1.5 location at the 6 o'clock position. Record the dimensions on the blade length measurements form. From the 18th fan blade tip measurement, enter the blade number and the dimension of the shortest and longest fan blade. Using the data from F1.5 dimension and FIR dimension form, recalculate the maximum and minimum dimensions on the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form. As before, compare the maximum and minimum dimensions from the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form to the limits shown in the fan tip clearance procedure. Both dimensions must be within the limits. As before, compare the F1.5 clearance dimensions from the blade length measurements form to the limits shown in the fan tip clearance procedure. The 18 fan blade dimensions should be within the limits. If the corrected average fan blade tip clearance is in limits, install the fan blade spinner and put the airplane back to its usual condition. The third attempt of correcting dimensions that are beyond the allowable limits is as follows. If the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form for the minimum or maximum fan blade tip clearance is out of the limits, do the following. If the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form for the maximum fan blade tip clearance is out of the limits, replace the shortest blade. If the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form for the minimum fan blade tip clearance is out of the limits, replace the longest blade. Now measure the fan blade tip clearance of the replaced fan blade at the F1.5 mark at the 6 o'clock position and record it on the blade length measurements form. From the 18 fan blade tip measurements, enter the blade number and the dimension of the shortest and longest fan blade. Using the data from F1.5 dimension and FIR dimension form, recalculate the maximum and minimum dimensions on the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form. As before, compare the maximum and minimum dimensions from the Calculate Tip Clearance Dimensions form to the limits shown in the fan tip clearance procedure. Both dimensions must be within the limits. If the corrected average fan blade tip clearance is in limits, install the fan blade spinner. Put the airplane back to its usual condition. The fourth attempt of correcting dimensions that are beyond the allowable limits is as follows. If fan blade movement or replacement does not bring the fan tip clearance dimensions within the procedure limit, do repair RD 835-298-S1 forward fan case abradable shroud repair of the fan tip clearance outside tolerance.